It is overtime here at Old Favorite Friday, and I'm continuing the conversation about another incredible classic beer, and that's the Black Note Stout by Bell's Brewing. Bell's has been featured more than any other brewery on Old Favorite Friday over the last 3 years. We've been doing this. This is actually the ninth beer we're doing from Bell's, and this was a beer I was able to get my hands on when I was on a trip recently at home in Michigan, and this was on the store shelf. It's a 2023 Black Note. I believe, to the best of my knowledge at least, they release this every year. This one was released in October of last year, so it's about 1 year old. And this is the beer I had for the first time many years ago. It first came out in 2007. And the two beers that are blended to make Black Note, let's start with that, are the Double Cream Stout and the Expedition Stout. Both beers been featured on Old Favorite Friday. So you know if I love the base beers, both those beers, I'm going to love this. And then they take that blend and they age it in a bourbon barrel. And I've had many bourbon barrel beers of Bell's and barrel-aged beers from Bell's over the years. They're all fantastic, and this is no exception. It's velvety smooth. It hides the alcohol at 11% extremely well. And it also does what I believe all great bourbon barrel beers do, and that means it does not overly express the bourbon. It's just not trying to be a glass of bourbon. It's trying to be a beer with a hint of those flavors. And to me, that's just the biggest mistake so many people make, is they think that their beer, if it's in a bourbon barrel, that's all it has to be. It's a one-trick pony. And the good ones, the ones that we feature on Old Favorite Friday, always balance that bourbon flavor with the actual beer itself. As I said, velvety smooth, rich, but just infinitely complex. I mean, you're getting your classic espresso and dark chocolate notes. You're also getting a bunch of dark fruit, dried fruit flavor. I'm getting a little hint of anise. You're getting the caramel. You're getting the vanilla. You're getting the char from the oak. I mean, really, really complex beer here that too often happens with the Old Favorite Friday is that I'll pull this beer out of the fridge, get myself set up on my video camera and start drinking. And a beer like this really needs a little more time to warm up and really be even more expressive. So you kind of put your hands around the glass like this and, give it a little bit more warmth, because that is going to make the beer even better. Yeah, and that's another thing that we talk about is hiding alcohol. Too often when beers get over that 10% threshold, even over a 9% threshold, they get really boozy, they get hot. Now, this beer is a year old, so maybe it was a little hotter when it was young. There's potential for that. But I've had this beer enough times to know how high quality it is and how well made and well crafted it is, to have that velvety smooth texture, to have all that flavor, and to be drinkable, remarkably drinkable, really, at this ABV. You also find with other beers like this that they overdo it, and they're a little bit too heavy and a little bit too sweet. None of that's here. There's residual sweetness, but just a smidge. If anything, I'm getting roast dryness. And because we're not leaving all that residual sugar in there, this beer does not have the texture of molasses. It's actually, as big and bold the flavors are, I mean, it's a full body beer, don't get me wrong, but it's on the low end of full bodied. It's not thick and viscous. It's really drinkable. And I just want to keep going back for more. Absolutely fantastic beer from an absolutely fantastic brewery. I will give you a little preview of the fact that even though Bell's have been featured more than any other brewery, that actually might change, because I found the mix pack of another incredible brewery that's going to be featured soon in the upcoming weeks of Old Favorite Friday, but we'll get to that when we do. Love to talk about food and beer pairings when it comes to Old Favorite Friday every week. And with this one, you can go with your classic, blue cheeseburger with an imperial stout like this, a bourbon barrel imperial stout. It's a really nice pairing. Stouts and blue cheese, that richness, the fattiness of the burger and the cheese go really well here. But for this, for this beer, because of how complex it is, because of how interesting the beer itself is, I would go really simple with the dish. I'd take something like a ribeye steak, and I would just sear it on the grill, equal parts of salt, pepper, and brown sugar to bring out some of that caramelization and that sweetness, and pair it with this. The fattiness of the meat, the texture and the richness of this beer will all blend so perfectly together. A little bit of that brown sugar will add some sweetness to this. It'll add all those extra like star anise and other flavors and dark fruit that come from the beer. And it's really going to be a great pairing. A lot of times we want to put too many ingredients in our food and too many ingredients in our beer. We want to make a beer that's a pastry stout with 10,000 ingredients and caramel syrup and all this other stuff. And we want to do with our dishes, we want to add more ingredients. But sometimes stripped down and simplistic is the way to go. This beer is fantastic because of the malt bill because of the skill of the brewing and that extra kick of the bourbon barrel. And you can do the same thing with a nice steak by keeping it simple and really just matching the right kind of flavors together. So I think one more sip of this for. Just beautiful, just absolutely beautiful beer. Well, thank you guys very much for joining me again for the Old Favorite Friday. We hope to see you next time. Please continue to tell us what we should be drinking, what you're drinking on Old Favorite Friday. If you have the opportunity, this beer is from a year ago, so you're probably, even if you have Bell's available in your area, probably not on the store shelves now, but probably coming up. So because they released this one in October of last year, I guess it'd be coming around again pretty soon. If you haven't had the joy of drinking this beer, do it. If you haven't had Expedition Stout or Double Cream Stout or any of the other stouts, Cherry Stout that they do, Kalamazoo Stout, they're all fantastic. You're doing yourself a disservice if you have not experienced that range of stouts that Bell's does. So do yourself a favor, find it, seek it out if it's available in your area, and then we'll see you next time for Old Favorite Friday. Cheers.